We've all been there, sitting across from someone who drains the life out of the room. Maybe it's a colleague who thrives on drama, a friend who leaves you questioning your worth, or even a family member who wraps every conversation in criticism. And here's the truth. Toxic people don't just show up in our lives. They feed off the boundaries we never set. So what do you do? How do you ensure they never have that kind of power over you again? The answer is surprisingly simple. It's about doing one thing, one bold, vulnerable, courageous act, choosing yourself first. Let me break it down for you. There comes a moment in all of our lives when we realize we've been handing out permission slips for how others treat us. It happens quietly. Maybe it's when you agree to something you didn't want to do just to keep the peace. Or when you let someone's cutting remarks slide because you don't want to seem too sensitive. Maybe it's when you spend an entire conversation explaining why your choices make sense, hoping they'll finally nod and say, "Okay, I get it." That's what it looks like to negotiate your worth, and it's exhausting. When we negotiate our worth, what we're really saying is, my value is conditional. It depends on your approval. It depends on how you see me, how you respond to me, how you accept or reject me. That's a dangerous bargain because it places something sacred, our sense of self, into hands that often don't even know how to hold it. Toxic people in particular thrive in that space. They sense the cracks where doubt lives and they press into them over and over because the more we explain and justify, the more power they hold. I want you to imagine for a moment that your worth is a diamond. It's unbreakable, rare, formed under pressure, and it shines no matter who is looking at it. Now picture someone holding that diamond and saying, I don't really like the way it sparkles. Could you maybe dull it a little? Could you reshape it to fit the box I want it in? If you're busy negotiating your worth, you might hand them sandpaper and say, "Okay, if I smooth down the edges, will you like me more?" But the truth is, the diamond doesn't need reshaping. It was never meant to be bartered. Its value doesn't depend on the buyer. It simply is, and so is yours. Stopping the negotiation of your worth begins with a hard, sometimes painful internal shift. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of someone not liking you, not approving of you, not giving you the validation you may have been chasing. And instead of rushing in to fix it, you let it be. You breathe. You remind yourself their inability to see my value does not diminish it. That's courage, not the loud, heroic kind, but the quiet kind that whispers, "I am enough. I don't need to explain myself anymore." When you stop negotiating, you stop over-explaining why you made a choice that aligns with your values. You stop apologizing for setting boundaries. You stop shrinking your dreams so that other people won't feel insecure standing next to them. You stop tying your worth to whether someone claps for you or criticizes you or ignores you. And the beautiful part, the moment you stop playing that game, toxic people lose their favorite tool because their power was never really in who they are. It was in how much you believed you had to earn your place with them. Let me tell you something radical. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Not your intelligence, not your beauty, not your goodness, not your right to exist as you are. The only person you owe that proof to is yourself. And the way you prove it isn't by working harder to earn it. It's by living it It's by standing tall in your truth, even if your voice shakes. It's by looking at someone who demands an explanation and calmly saying, "No, this is who I am. This is what I've chosen." Full stop. The moment you stop negotiating your worth, you stop giving toxic people oxygen. You stop letting their doubts, criticisms, and manipulations steer the ship of your life. And in that silence, where you no longer argue, justify, or explain, you'll find something breathtaking: freedom. The freedom of no longer asking permission to be yourself, the freedom of being enough without condition. For most of us, the word boundaries feels heavy. We picture shutting people out, building walls, and keeping our guard up. And because of that, many of us resist the idea altogether. We tell ourselves, "I don't want to be cold. I don't want to push people away. I don't want to seem selfish." But here's the truth: boundaries aren't about exile. They're about access. They're not walls that lock people out forever. They're doors you control. And the key is always in your hand. Think of it this way: every healthy home has a front door. That door doesn't mean you hate the world. It doesn't mean you're unfriendly or closed off. It simply means you get to choose who comes in, how long they stay, and under what conditions. You decide who gets the full access pass to your kitchen table, who belongs on the front porch, and who should never get past the front gate. Boundaries in your personal life work the exact same way. They are acts of intentional love for yourself and for the relationships that truly matter. The biggest misconception about boundaries is that they are meant to punish others. That's not their purpose at all. Boundaries are not about control. They're about clarity. They communicate. This is what I need to stay whole. This is how I can continue to show up with honesty, love, and integrity. When you set them, you're not saying, "I don't care about you." You're saying, "I care about me enough to honor my limits, and I care about you enough to be clear." Toxic people, of course, struggle with boundaries. They will test them, push against them, and sometimes outright ignore them. That's because your boundaries take away the free access they once had to your energy, your emotions, and your attention. But that's the point. Boundaries are not about pleasing others. They're about protecting your peace. And peace isn't selfish, it's essential. Let me give you a picture. Imagine your life is a garden without a fence. Anyone can trample through it. Some might admire the flowers, but others will pick them without asking, pull at the roots, or leave trash behind. A boundary is that simple wooden fence that says you're welcome to enjoy the view, but if you want to step inside, you need permission. You need to honor the space. It doesn't mean no one is welcome. It means the right people, the ones who treat your garden with care, get the privilege of entering, and the ones who harm it don't. The beauty of boundaries is that they're flexible. A wall is rigid and permanent. A door, on the other hand, can be opened wide for those you trust or gently closed when you need rest. It can be locked if someone violates your safety, or cracked open for new people who may earn your trust over time. That's what makes boundaries powerful. They're living, breathing expressions of your self-respect. When you begin to see boundaries as doors instead of walls, you stop carrying the guilt. You stop telling yourself you're being too much or too distant. You realize that by managing your access points, you're actually making more room for love, not less. Because without boundaries, resentment grows. Without boundaries, burnout takes over. Without boundaries, toxic people get unlimited entry, while the ones who truly care for you often get pushed aside. So the shift is this: you don't have to shut down to protect yourself. You don't have to harden your heart. You only need to decide where the door is, who gets the key, and under what conditions it stays open. That way, the people who deserve closeness feel safe and cherished, and the people who can't honor your space simply find themselves outside. And here's the beautiful part. When you learn to treat boundaries as doors, not walls, you invite healthier connections. You teach others how to love you well, and you remind yourself every single day that your energy, your time, and your heart are sacred. Drama has a way of pulling us in like quicksand. The more we kick, the deeper we sink. Toxic people are masters of this. They know exactly which buttons to press, which words to use, and which silences to stretch until you finally break and step into their storm. And once you're in, you're stuck in a cycle, reacting, defending, overthinking, and replaying conversations in your head long after they're over. That's how drama works. It feeds on your energy, not on truth. Detaching from the drama doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It doesn't mean you shut down or become indifferent. It means you stop giving away your peace as if it's free. It means you learn to tell the difference between what requires your attention and what is simply bait. And most importantly, it means you choose clarity over chaos. Imagine being in a room where someone is shouting at the top of their lungs. Your first instinct might be to shout back, to match their volume, to make sure you're heard. But if you take a step back and observe, you realize something powerful. You don't have to match their noise. You can lower your voice, you can walk out of the room, or you can simply stand still and let them run out of steam. That's what detachment looks like. It's refusing to become a character in someone else's play. Here's the hard truth. Toxic people thrive on reactions. Your outrage, your frustration, your desperate attempt to explain, it all becomes fuel for them. It keeps the spotlight on the chaos and off of accountability. But when you stop reacting, when you disengage from the performance, the show falls flat. There's no applause. There's no conflict to feed on. There's only silence. And silence is something drama cannot survive. Detaching is a skill, and like all skills, it takes practice. At first, you'll feel the urge to explain yourself again. You'll want to send that one last message that proves your point. You'll want to raise your voice, slam the door, or craft the perfect comeback. But detachment whispers, don't waste your energy, protect your peace. It teaches you that not every comment deserves a reply, not every accusation deserves a defense, and not every argument deserves your presence. One of the most freeing realizations you'll ever have is this: you do not need to attend every battle you're invited to. Just because someone throws the bait doesn't mean you have to bite. Just because they stir the pot doesn't mean you have to taste it. When you detach, you're not ignoring the problem. You're refusing to let the problem define you. Picture a storm raging outside your window. If you step out into it, you'll get soaked, beaten by the wind, and blinded by the chaos. But if you stay inside, behind the glass, you can watch the storm without becoming part of it. The storm still exists, but it doesn't control you. Detachment is that window. It's the choice to observe without absorbing. And here's the beauty: when you detach from drama, you create space for clarity. You start to see toxic patterns for what they are. Not proof of your inadequacy, but evidence of someone else's inability to manage themselves. You stop carrying their emotions as if they were your own. And in that space, you begin to hear your own voice again. The calm, steady voice that says, you don't need to fix them. You don't need to fight them. You only need to free yourself. Detachment doesn't strip you of compassion. It strengthens it. Because once you stop drowning in other people's storms, you finally have the energy to stand firmly in your own life. And from that grounded place, you can love more authentically, give more intentionally, and walk away more courageously when you need to. There is a quiet power that comes from deciding to respect yourself in ways that are non-negotiable. It's not about arrogance or building an ego so tall that no one can reach you. Radical self-respect is about choosing again and again to honor your own humanity, your own dignity, and your own worth. It's the moment you stop asking for permission to exist fully and begin standing in the truth that you are enough exactly as you are. So many of us are taught to look outward for cues. We measure our value by the nods of approval we receive, the applause we get, or the validation we're given. And when those things don't come, we lower ourselves. We think, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should try harder. Maybe if I explain myself one more time, they'll finally understand. But here's the reality: no amount of outside approval can fill the void left by a lack of self-respect. The moment you place your worth in the hands of others, you've already given them the power to diminish it. Radical self-respect begins when you decide to be the guardian of your own value. It's when you say, I am no longer available for relationships that diminish me. I will no longer tolerate disrespect disguised as honesty. I will no longer keep shrinking myself to make others comfortable. This shift is not loud or flashy. It's steady. It's the quiet decision to refuse what doesn't honor you. And that decision changes everything. When you step into radical self-respect, your standards rise. Not because you think you're better than others, but because you finally recognize that mistreatment is not love, criticism is not guidance, and manipulation is not connection. You stop giving endless chances to people who have shown you repeatedly who they are. You stop bending yourself into impossible shapes to fit someone else's expectations. And in that process, toxic people naturally fall away, not because you push them out, but because they can't survive in the light of your new standard. Think about it this way: if you walk into a room and see a sign that says, "Do not enter without permission," you immediately know the space inside is protected, valued, and intentional. But if the door is wide open with no guard, anyone can walk in, disrupt, or even destroy what's inside. Radical self-respect is that sign. It's the energetic boundary that says this is sacred ground. If you want access, you need to treat it with care. The beautiful thing is that when you respect yourself, others learn how to respect you too. You teach people how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. If you dismiss your needs, minimize your voice, or allow constant disrespect, you're silently telling the world, this is acceptable. But when you stand firm, when you honor your boundaries and refuse to tolerate mistreatment, you set a new tone. You make it clear, if you want to be in my life, you need to meet me here with kindness, with honesty, and with respect. Radical self-respect doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes, never doubt yourself, or never stumble. It means that even when you do, you don't abandon yourself. You don't speak to yourself with cruelty. You don't punish yourself for being human. Instead, you offer yourself compassion, you pick yourself up, and you keep walking forward with dignity. That in itself is an act of resistance against the toxic voices inside and outside that want you to believe you're less than you are. And here's the most powerful part. Once you embrace radical self-respect, you no longer chase people who can't see your value. You no longer beg for scraps of love or attention or acknowledgement. You realize that the love you've been searching for begins with how deeply you choose to honor yourself. And from that place, the people who belong in your life, the ones who genuinely care, who uplift, who celebrate you, naturally find their way to you. Radical self-respect is not just a choice, it's a way of living. It's a daily practice of saying, I am enough, and I will no longer participate in anything that asks me to believe otherwise. And when you live this way, toxic people don't just stop bothering you, they stop even recognizing you as a place to land. You become untouchable in the most grounded, graceful way.